this is the Central Criminal Court, Justice Court, and this, otherwise known as the Old Bailey. This is where it was built on the site of a former prison called Newgate Prison, the infamous Newgate Prison. It was from here, this church, that many priests would pray with the condemned men who were hanged on this in Newgate Prison. They had public hangings here on the road. Well, this road looks very civilized right now, but from the right up to I think 1868, I think it was, that there were public hangings here. The prisoners would be led, the condemned people would be brought out here and publicly executed in front of thousands, hundreds of people who witnessed the execution. And then the executions were something of a fair-ground atmosphere, because they would, be pie sellers, there'd be people selling drinks, there'd be people just making money, and all these people would just have a huge spectacle, and there would be houses around here where people would pay, the rich, those who could afford it, would pay to get a window seat, literally, by hiring a room where they can watch the executed person getting executed by hanging. So it was a very public affair. Now they've got all this media here around at the moment, and it was originally meant to be a court that dealt with these criminals within the city of London itself. However, in mid-18th century, there was a huge case of the poisoner. This bloke was basically poisoning people with cyanide in Rugeley, and so fearing that he was not going to get a fair trial. Now because of that case in Rugeley in the mid-18th century, there's a man who was caught poisoning his victim with cyanide, causing a very painful death. In his subsequent trial, his defense team was rather concerned that he was not going to get a fair trial. Special law was enacted to allow the trial to be done there in that building in the Old Bailey. So that was in 1856, and so, hence thus is now a court for a lot of serious criminal offences throughout the UK are tried here. Many infamous trials have been conducted. Many infamous people have been sentenced here. It's got a history. This present building here was actually kicked off in 1902, but it was actually opened in 1907. But where it stands is actually built on the site of the Old Bailey that was built in the 18th century. But there have been several different forms of prisons, and courthouses in one way, shape or another over the centuries. But this is now the present location. So when you see on the films and shows and you read books about the Old Bailey, this is it. And Newgate Prison, this is the site. Newgate Prison itself, we're going to have a look at the remainder of what that prison is. So down there is the last remaining part of Newgate Prison. That wall there is the last part. It's the only surviving part. And I can't go in there because it's actually a private dwelling place. So it's actually people living there, so it's private property. So that is where Newgate Prison looked like. The reason why they called it Newgate Prison is because when they built the prison, in the 16th century. It was built in the old Roman war and the one at the old gate, one of the gates of the Roman war.